Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of Breaking Through the Alina Abovian podcast. This week, we have energy healer and quantum coach Paget Kagy. What I learned from this episode is that we all possess what is our energetic field, buried deep inside under your personality, your subconscious, and all of your conditioning. In her practice, Paget teaches how to cleanse your energy in order to attract the type of life you want. What I found particularly interesting is her idea that there must be a destruction of your old self, your old energy, in order to attract new things. So oftentimes, what we think is falling apart is actually making room for something new. What Paget essentially does is help people understand how to release whatever energy patterns that are holding them back in life, keeping them from aligning with their highest destiny. Paget explains how our energy creates our reality, that in order to attract what we want in life, we have to first work on our energy. Paget Kagy on the podcast today. I'm so excited to have you here because I stumbled on to you on Instagram. You had a video, and I swear it's like this video is exactly what I was looking for in that moment. And it just made sense. You know, when you read something, you see something and it clicks, you're like, oh.
Yes.
It was the video you posted where you're playing dual parts, universe and, just yourself. And the person is complaining, saying, why is my life falling apart? And your response from the universe is, well, you asked for change. So change, you have to first have destruction and then change in a pathway to something new. So welcome to the podcast. And let's dive into that first and foremost.
Yeah. So that's just the law of the universe, right? You have to, if you want to welcome in, and this is actually why I say when people talk about manifestation, like, oh my God, yes, I just want $10 million next year or tomorrow. And I'm like, do you? Because really, in order for you to become, let's say you're making like $50K a year right now, right? And you're like, I want to manifest $10 million. The you right now isn't going to be able to have the $10 million that you want. So what would have to happen for you to manifest $10 million in like a year? You would have to go through an entire identity like shift, right? An entire identity destruction, almost, if you want to call it that, in order to become the person who can actually maintain and hold that $10 million that you want. So we think we just want the thing, but our higher selves are smarter than that, or spirits, whatever you want to call it, right? That source that runs through you, whatever you want to call it, is smarter than that. It knows, okay, actually, if I just gave you $10 million right now, you would not actually like that. Because another thing, it's getting a little off topic, but that happens when we get the good things too quickly and too soon is that it's very disorienting. Like if we're not the person who can actually hold that and be the person who can have the $10 million, that $10 million would totally disorient you. You would actually lose yourself in the $10 million. This is why when people talk about overnight fame, overnight success, sometimes people get a little distorted or they get depressed or these other things come out in them, these like other demons come out. It's not that there's anything wrong with success. It's not that there's anything wrong with money or fame. It's just that having it too soon before you are actually stable enough to have it would actually be a really bad thing because it like literally like would pull you off your center and you would like lose your identity in the money. And all of a sudden your whole identity is the money, right? And that's not really a good experience of reality or life.
Okay. So before we formally really get started, you read energy, you read frequency. What is that? And how did you start doing it? I mean, I can't imagine you went to energy frequency reading school. It's like, what is this?
Okay. So let me just say that everyone has abilities. You have abilities. Like literally in you right now, you know everything that I know. Mm-hmm. I know everything that you know. We actually know everything. All of us actually know everything because we're all connected to what I call is source, like source consciousness. We're all connected to all that there is that is creating everything in this reality. And that source consciousness runs through every single person and it's connected to all there is. So we all know everything. So when it comes to my reading of energies, basically what I'm doing is I'm just consciously able to tell you what I am seeing in your energetic field. But here's the thing, you already know actually what's in your energetic field. You just don't know it at a conscious level. right? You just you're not awakened to necessarily at the moment know it at a conscious level. I'm just able to tap into your energetic field and say, oh yeah, you are running that pattern. Or, oh yeah, doesn't that kind of happen to you a lot? Or yeah, isn't that kind of something that, that you experience over and over and over again in your life? And you'd be like, yes. So you obviously know it's happening. You just don't realize it's an energetic pattern that's creating that, or an energy that's actually creating that. I'm just able to consciously see the energetic pattern that's creating it.
Well, I think you have to also almost have like a calling into this new state of consciousness. It doesn't happen randomly. So what was it for you? What was that breakthrough that sort of got you onto this career path? What were you doing before? What did you do in school? How did you stumble into this? Give us like the 411 on
Oh my
Paget.
gosh, it's too long of a story. I'll try to keep this short. So I went to UC Berkeley to study math and engineering because that's what I thought that I wanted. I thought that I should do, even though I was always very creative, even as a kid. When I graduated, I came to LA and I was reconnecting with that creative juice in me. And I thought I wanted to be an actor at the time. So then I was doing the whole acting thing, not successfully, right? A lot of failed rejection, a lot of bad experiences in Hollywood. And it really broke me down. Like it broke my identity down because I'm like, wait, none of this is working. Like, why can't I be successful or why can't I make it? What's wrong with me? And so I went through a series of a lot of not so good, not such great experiences that really like broke me down to my core. Right?
How old are you at this time?
That was like starting in 21, when I was like 21.
That's correct. A pretty early age to sort of hit rock bottom.
Yes. And it lasted for quite a while. Okay. So there I was, rock bottom for quite a long time. Now, the point when I actually was like, okay, there has to be more to this reality than just like what I'm saying, because I was all into math and engineering, was when I actually was dating, and then I ended up dating this guy who ended up being engaged.
Oh, wow.
6 months I was dating this guy who was engaged the entire time and I didn't even know. And I'm like, wait a second. No, I'm a smart person. Like, I went to UC Berkeley. Like, I'm a smart person. I should know better. How could I end up dating someone who was engaged this entire time, 6 months?
That can really make you question everything about yourself.
It did. And actually, that was when I decided to go to my first psychic. Because I was like, something's off that I am clearly not seeing and I don't know where to go. So I'm just going to go to a psychic, right? And I'm going to ask them, like, what do you see? What happened here? Like, what was going on? And that's when I started my spiritual journey into awakening. I started to get more interested in manifestation and energy and the law of attraction and mindset and all of these different things. But then I was doing all those things and they still weren't quite working for me. They didn't work for me, right? Like I would see a little change here and there, but they weren't giving me the really big change I wanted. So that goes into the whole energy work, right? They weren't giving me the change that I wanted because actually this goes back to the work that I do. And I don't know if this is going a little too deep, a little too soon, but what actually creates your reality is your core, is your energetic blueprint at a deeper level, right? It goes beyond your mindset, subconscious programming, your even just your physical actions. It's like this core energy that runs through you. And the more purified that core energy is, or that connection to the source within you, the higher frequency you are as a human being, and then the higher levels of possibilities you can actually open up in your reality. And when this happens, you literally feel like a different person, like you become a different identity. Mindset work, all of that stuff, subconscious programming, it can be great. Like, and if it works for you, then that means that you are already actually open to that, right? Possibility in your field. Shifting your core energetic identity is actually shifting the energy of who you actually are.
Because I feel like nowadays, especially, we hear these ideas everywhere, right? Manifestation, visualization, quantum leaping. And to a lot of people, it sounds a little hokey.
Yes.
And if you had asked me several years ago, I maybe would have said, I don't know about that, But what is it? You're saying that it goes back to the basics of like, your core beliefs.
So it would show up as a core belief on a conscious level, but it even goes deeper than that, right? That's why
So it's the connection to source.
yes,
What is that?
Yes. So I would define really your spirit, people talk about your higher self or your spirit, same thing, as your your pure connection to source.
And can source be religion, or is it all internal?
Source is literally the consciousness or the energy that creates everything. That's how I see it. So some people call it God. Like God, you can call it whatever you like. It doesn't really matter to me. So people call it God and they connect with it through this idea of God. And that's totally cool. Like there's nothing wrong with that at all. But it's just the energy that has created everything, right? And you obviously have that energy in you because you're part of everything.
Right.
And so your spirit or your higher self is the connection between your physical body, your humanness, and the source of all there is, or God, right? Or source consciousness or pure consciousness, whatever you want to call it. So that's how I would see it.
So you decided you want to start studying this. What does studying this look like? And then how do you get to a point where you can actually read energy?
Yeah. So I was doing all the mindset stuff, all that stuff, and it wasn't quite getting me the results that I wanted. And my breakthrough happened during a breakdown, guys, because that's what happens, right?
Oh, yes, that's how it works.
Our breakthroughs happen during our breakdowns. Because really, whenever we go through a breakdown, and 2024 especially is a year where a lot of people are going through a lot of breakdowns of identity. We're going through a huge new wave of consciousness, or rather, there are new energies that are available to us like never before, but that requires breaking.
Why now?
I don't know. It's a good question. Why now? Because we are able to hold it now. Like we are elevated enough to be able to access like these higher levels of frequency, right? And so with that, however, comes a lot of destruction. So you'll even see like out in the world right now, there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of destruction. There's a lot of angst and anxiety and all of this stuff happening.
I feel like the bubble is bursting in a sense.
Yeah.
Where we spent so many years looking outside ourselves for so much.
Yes.
And then the pandemic happened where we were forced to look within. And a lot of people don't know what to do with that.
Yes.
They don't know what it means to actually sit with yourself.
Totally.
And when I look at all of this, in my own practice, and I've been kind of in tune with this for the last 2 years, it's all about going inward.
Yes.
Because that's the connection to source. And that's sort of, in my understanding, the premises behind meditation, when you can let everything else fall to the side and you are connected to source,
100%.
What is source? How do people do it? It's really difficult. It takes a lot of practice.
Yes.
And at the same time, it's like, but that's where the answers come.
Yes.
And you have to understand that about yourself too. I've realized I can't make rash decisions about things. I have to step away and like really go into myself, and then the answer just comes.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
Getting there is the challenge.
Yeah. I mean, so for me, getting there looked like a breakdown of, oh my gosh, none of this is working. I kind of, quote, hate my life, right? I hate myself. I hate my life. I was so angry. I remember I was like pacing around in my garage and just being like, oh my God, you can't do this. Like, what's wrong with you, Paget? Why can't you make anything? Why can't you make any of this work? And then in all of that, I just felt this like this energetic wave, I guess you can say, or this energy wave that came through me. And actually for a second, I thought I was having a heart attack because it just felt so intense.
Right.
And I was like, what is that? And it wasn't obviously someone speaking to me. It was myself speaking to my higher self speaking through me. But it was like this knowing that you are the creator of your reality, Paget. Right? So what are you like you are the creator though. It was a knowing that kind of flooded through me and then it just left. But it was like this insight from my higher self that was like, Paget, you have it in you to change your life.
Would you call this like a spiritual awakening?
I would say that it would be like a spiritual awakening, a spiritual a download almost.
So how can someone identify if they're having a spiritual awakening? Because for me, I was doing a lot of hiking at the time. I was seeking being alone a lot. And I felt like it's because there's a part of me that's trying to say something to me and I can't access it.
Yes.
So I almost needed to isolate. And I was doing a lot of that, just isolating, really listening to myself. And I felt like my soul was running on a path that I couldn't even keep up with. And I was
Totally.
getting these, my heart was pulling me in a different direction, and for me, it was the dissolution of my marriage and the dissolution of what I placed identity and self-worth into.
Yes.
And saying, I have to let go of all this because clearly it's not making me happy. And it's like breaking down completely and surrendering to, this is how I feel.
100%. Yeah.
And that felt like a spiritual awakening for me.
Oh, that is 100% a spirit. That is what a
But how
spiritual
can
awakening.
someone identify that if they're going through something?
Honestly, if something is not working in your life and you keep on hitting resistance after resistance after resistance, that is your higher self trying to call you back to you. Because a lot of the times when we keep doing that, it's because we're externally focused. We've lost ourselves, right? So a lot of people who are really focused on an achievement outside of themselves, hyper focused. That was me with acting and all of that, right? They've lost their identity in the thing that they're focused on outside of themselves. Like you said, right? You're like, this isn't quite making me happy. There's something not right here. And the reason why your higher self is like, okay, we're going to present resistance after difficulty after challenge.
Because the life you're building is feeding the ego.
Yeah.
It's not feeding your soul.
It's not necessarily
because you're
feeding your
not
soul.
even asking yourself, what do I want? You're
Right.
just sort of on this trajectory of this map of filling society standards of great job. I have children. I'm a good mom. I bought a big house. It's decorated really nicely. I'm going to cook for everyone. Everyone's going to come over.
Yes.
I'm going to be on all these boards and I'm going to help raise money and
Yes.
be, fight the good fight. You're doing all these things.
Yeah.
But you're like, I'm not connected.
To myself.
Yeah. And that's when you feel, I think, miserable.
Exactly. That's a spiritual awakening.
But people sometimes interpret that like, you must be crazy. You're taking your life for granted or you're giving up.
No,
But you just
no,
know.
yeah.
What's the difference between giving up and waking up?
Because sometimes they can look the same externally. They're a very different experience when you're in it, but they can look the same. Again, like you said, to the outside world, people would look at that and go, you're crazy. You're so ungrateful. How dare you? How ungrateful are you that you just want to ruin your life and give up everything, right? But for you, you're just like, no, it's not connected anymore. I'm not connected
Yeah, I
anymore.
wasn't present in any room I was in.
Exactly.
I was just in my head.
Exactly. Right? That's a spiritual awakening. That's your higher self going, there is something wrong. You have to let something go. And a lot of the times because you're not listening or because we don't listen, our higher selves will be like, okay, we're just going to introduce a really, really big tower moment is what I call it, or a really big destructive moment in your life so that you finally pay attention. The more that we ignore the signs from our higher self, and that can look like depression. It can look like anxiety. It can look like, my health is off. It can look like a lot of different things. Those are the little signs from your higher self going, hey, maybe you need to look at something. Mm-hmm. If you ignore them for way too long, your higher self is going to deliver a massive truck and it's going to go, now you can't look away.
Wow.
Now you have no choice.
And that will happen, unfortunately, for some people in the form of a health scare.
Yes.
Or the loss of a job.
Yes.
The loss of someone in their lives that sort of gives them that reason to break through.
100%.
I find that also we develop unhealthy coping mechanisms because we don't know what it is.
Exactly.
We are fighting the resistance by going out too much, drinking too much, doing a million other things instead of getting to the root cause.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And actually a lot of people who don't know and so then they don't wake up, they actually end up, it's so interesting because I'm able to read this through you and maybe some people or I'm not sure, but they who ignore those signs and they're just like, no, I guess this is just the way life is. They literally feel like robots. Mm-hmm. They literally become like robots.
Autopilot
robots. They're like, okay, this is my function.
It's just life, right?
Yeah.
They say that.
Right.
It's the struggle.
Yes. And they completely disconnect, which allows them actually to do some really impressive things, but they're not really in it at all.
So what's your advice to someone who thinks that they might be on the brink of something? Like, how do they look for the signs and how do they seek help? Because this goes, I think, beyond traditional psychology. This is more on a spiritual level.
Yes.
So what do they do with that information?
Yeah. So Well, I mean, even look at your story, right? What did you do? You went inward. You spent more time by yourself. You start asking yourself the deeper questions, literally the questions you ask yourself. Is this actually what I want? Or is this just what I've been conditioned to think that I want? Is this actually lighting me up inside? Whatever that is, whether it's just even like, is life lighting me up inside right now? Because if it's not lighting you up inside, there is something wrong. I'm not saying everything is like, rainbows and daisies all the time, but life should fundamentally light you up. That is literally why we are here, to have a human experience.
I just think people don't give themselves permission to reach that level of happiness. It's almost like we are programmed to sacrifice. So we feel like in order to have a life that is of service to others, like our children or our spouse or our extended family, and to make people proud or to fill these boxes, we have to be sacrificing something.
Yes.
But that's not the case.
No, it's not supposed to be the case, right? Like that's what we're conditioned to think. And you see this all the time with like mindset people and successful people who are like, you have to sacrifice. You have to work your butt. You have to sacrifice everything in order to get success. Like that doesn't even sound appealing.
No,
like who wants to choose? Like who's actually choosing that I am going to sacrifice my health, my happiness, my family, all my relationships in order for me to get this one thing? To me, that's almost like, so people say this, and I don't mean this in like the extreme way of this definition. It's almost like selling your soul,
right?
In a way, just for like a one little thing over here, like, which could be it could sound like a big thing, like $10 million, but literally what you are saying when you do that is that $10 million is more important and more valuable than me. So now you're going after the thing, thinking that thing is more valuable than you. You're not going to have a good experience in that thing, because that thing will always remind you how you are not as good as that thing.
Right. Right. And that develops like imposter syndrome.
Everyone has imposter syndrome to some degree, right? Like we have to give ourselves a break in that, but it leads us to basically being disconnected in our experience of the things that we get.
Okay, so I want to talk specifically about what you do and who are the types of people you see and what are some of the issues people come to you with.
So it's interesting because people mostly come to me and they don't know why they want to come to me, or they don't know why they want to like contact me, or they don't know why they want to work with me. I've had this happen so many times. They're like, I don't really know why I'm here, but I just feel like I need to be here.
That's enough.
Yeah,
right? That's enough to get started.
Right?
It's the questioning.
Yeah, exactly. But when I actually see them, it's usually things like they know they feel this disconnect with life, and they don't know why. And they're perfect. Like they do everything perfectly. They know how to do all the right rituals and the right morning routines and the right mindset and all that, but they still feel like there's something that's not quite clicking. And when I read them and I tell them what it is, they're always like, oh, that's what it is? Really? And it's usually something like they've inherited a lot of like energies and things like that from their lineage or their parents, let's say. And so they don't feel like themselves anymore, right? They feel like they're turning into someone else, and they don't even realize that that's what's happening, but it takes away their energy. Emotionally, they don't feel as like light in themselves, right? They feel older than they actually are. And they also just feel like the light bulb of life has just switched off for some reason, right? They just don't feel lit up inside anymore. That's usually why people end up coming to me, to be quite honest, but they think it's just because, oh, I'm stuck in my career. Oh, I'm stuck in my relationships. Oh, I'm stuck in this. And I'm like, actually, if you just fixed that, the deeper core thing, if you lit up inside by connecting to that source of all there is that we talked about, all of those other things will kind of just like fall into place for you.
Right.
Because then your higher self is leading and you're not getting in the way.
Because I think a lot of times people equate this type of practice with, manifesting for success. And it's not like that. It's not like you just sit on the couch and you think positive thoughts and the world becomes a positive place. It goes deeper. So how do you work with people like this?
Yeah. So
what's your advice or assessment?
So the way I work with people is, so I read their energetic field and then I'll see some energy patterns. And basically what I'm doing is I'm opening up the possibility for them to release energy patterns that are keeping them disconnected from themselves. And then when they do this, they naturally elevate to higher frequencies. They naturally feel more confident and comfortable in their skin. They naturally feel more lit up inside and connected to life itself. So that's how I work with people. But really what that is, it's exposing them to the possibilities of actually who they are, or reconnecting them with who they actually are, right? At a deeper energetic level. So in terms of what they can do, it's very similar. I mean, what you can start doing is start doing the meditation, right? Going into, I'm not always, which sounds really weird that I'm an energy healer, but I'm not even able to do this sometimes, but go into really deep states of meditation, go to those really high levels, right? And that's a practice that you can start doing, listening to yourself, right? Listening to that voice within you. And there's so many things that can help you do that, like float tanks, even like deprivation, sensory deprivation tanks, where you're like, it's basically like you're in this float tank. It's completely dark. You can't see anything. So there's like complete sensory deprivation. You're just kind of floating there, and it forces you to deal with yourself.
I feel like we have different ways of accessing that. For me, it's being in nature, right? So when I go hiking, and that's sort of my meditative state, I meditate sometime in the morning, sometimes in the mornings, and then sometimes it's just when I'm by myself, I'm hiking. So my body is physically engaged in something.
Yeah.
I'm present in something.
Yes.
And my mind, whether it's like positive endorphins that are flowing, really taps into believing in myself. Like I have the best ideas when I'm hiking, and they don't seem crazy in my mind at the time, because it's like I'm actually tapped into that best version of me. You know, so I'm getting these ideas. It's like I'm not looking for the problems. I'm rather just seeing solutions.
Yeah.
And how do you explain that?
So when you're in nature, that's a really good suggestion, by the way, being in nature, because when you're in nature, nature has a frequency to it because nature's pure, right?
Right.
So it has a frequency to it that you are able to entrain to. It actually helps you remember more of like your true nature. So it helps you take away some of that garbage while you're in nature. So that's why the ideas come in. That's why you're like, oh my gosh, like I feel limitless right now, because it helps remind you of who you actually are, because it itself is in the pure frequency of who it is, which is just nature, right?
So I guess it's as simple as maybe finding something where you feel like that little voice inside is speaking clearly, whatever that activity is for you.
Yeah.
And starting there, essentially.
Yeah. And it could be bike riding. It could be literally people who are taking the shower. They have those like, hits and things like that. It's because they forget who they are, or they forget who they think they are.
Right.
Right. And they're able to access more of who they actually are.
So a couple things. What is frequency?
Frequency is what makes up everything, right?
So when they say you're on a higher frequency, what is it? I mean, how do you explain it to someone who has no knowledge about this thing?
So frequency, there's a certain level of frequency that makes up this physical chair here, that makes up our physical bodies here. There's and then there are less dense frequencies or higher levels of frequency that we can't even see, right? There's also sound frequency. There is, like, as we all know, frequency also makes up colors, right? And so when it comes to the energy that you would often hear about when it comes to manifestation, there's the mindset. That your mind, by the way, your thoughts have a frequency, and then your subconscious has a frequency, and then there's frequency beyond that. So I like to deal with the frequency beyond that. But your subconscious mind has a frequency. Your mind, your thoughts do have a frequency, right? Your physical body has a frequency. It's just the energy that is creating literally everything in this reality, whether it's a thought, it's a feeling, it's a physical thing, right? It's an action. There's a frequency to you doing things, right? To action itself. There's a frequency of nature itself, right? That is creating nature, right? A frequency to a leaf. So everything is made up of energy. I call it frequency but you can call it interchangeably, but there are different levels of energy. There are different levels of frequency.
So the higher on the frequency chart you go, essentially, you are reaching a better version of yourself, a more capable, more open version.
Yes, because...
How do we get there?
Okay. Yes. Okay. So let me just also explain this. So, yes. So the higher frequency so it's not just the higher frequency you can go, because some people can go into deep meditation, they can access high frequencies, but they have trouble grounding it in their physical body. So they'll temporarily be of a really high frequency, but then when they're just sitting at home, all of a sudden it totally drops because they're not actually grounding. This is getting a little technical. They're not actually grounding that frequency into their physical body.
Okay.
So you actually want both. You want to be able to ground and also access the high frequencies at the same time. You don't just want to like go float outside of your body like a lot of people do, and they go to the high frequencies. And it's like, okay, but when you come back here,
They're
like
still
where
the
did it
same
go?
negative person.
Exactly. Right. No, you want to actually ground, integrate those frequencies into your being. So whether you're sleeping, whether you're having a cup of coffee, whether you're like just kind of zoning out, you are of a higher frequency just naturally. You don't have to think it. You don't have to try for it. It just is. Right.
So let's talk about what happened yesterday. So you and I were on a call and you read my energy.
Yeah.
So I feel like if we can go through that, it'll give people a better understanding of your practice. So you were reading my energy. Can you read my energy now? Is it something that you can always access?
It is. But you know what's so interesting? Sometimes if people are like, it's so interesting. Sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, well, read me. And then they don't really want to be read. Right.
Right.
So it takes me a little longer for me to like go, okay, let's peel back that defense layer. Let's peel back that layer. And then we can get in there. But yeah, it's something where I just click into you basically. So I don't know if we want to do it right now.
Yeah, let's do it.
But I would, okay.
Let's do it.
So
you were telling me to take deep breaths.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
So it just helps me connect with you. So take a breath into your chest. Cool. Okay. Because we worked yesterday, like there's like this newness that's actually coming through you. Like even in like a fresh, like breath of fresh air coming through you.
I had some very vivid dreams last night after our session. And I feel like I did a lot of mental purging, almost subconsciously in my sleep.
Totally.
It's crazy.
And so so we also worked on your throat a lot too. So I'm just seeing this like new solid energy just coming through this space. And it's like a bright energy coming through here. So, okay. So hold on. Let me just... Nice. So more confidence, less of the anxiousness or the anxiety.
So can you explain what energy you read in me yesterday?
Do you want me to?
Yes, yeah.
Are you sure?
Yes, we're being totally honest here. Go for it.
Okay. So this is so common, right? This is not uncommon. I see this all the time. But let's say because you were close with a family member, you would like end up just unconsciously inheriting some of their energy patterns, right? And the way that they run their reality, because we don't know any better. Like as we're growing up, we're like, oh, I guess that's the right way to do it, right? Because they're surviving, they're functioning. So I guess I'll just like, follow in their footsteps. So then we just like repeat the patterns. So the patterns that I saw in you, it wasn't you. It's not who you actually are. It's not your real essence, but it was just creating more like of a frantic, impatient, anxious energy in you that is not who you are. So it would just make everything feel a little more irritable and a little bit more stressful and a little bit more like, do you know what I mean? Like impatient than it needs to be. And so that would make everything feel a lot harder. Like it would make everything you do feel a lot harder. So you're a really hard worker and you're working hard as it is, but like it would actually, the hard work that you would do would feel even harder for you, or it would weigh you down.
I have a problem with surrendering to the situation because I step into everything thinking, this is great. This is how I want it to be. And so my mind already commits to an outcome. And that subconsciously makes you project what could go wrong, right? It's like a survival mechanism. We think, okay, let's say this person called me for work. And if they didn't call me back the next day, in my mind, I'm already 10 steps ahead worrying about everything that could go wrong.
Right.
So don't do that.
That's it. Well, okay. So that's a control pattern. Like a lot of highly successful people have control patterns. Okay. And it's actually one of the hardest things to release when you get to a certain level of success, because that control pattern, you think that has worked for you this entire time. Mm-hmm. You don't realize that you actually didn't need it in order to get to where you are, but you think you do because you've gotten to a certain level of success. So now it's even harder to like let go of, because you're like, wait a second, no. Because if I let go of this, like everything's going to fall apart. And like, hello, this is how I've built my success thus far. I see this a lot with highly successful people. So for you, it's like, so by the way, behind control patterns are fear patterns and a lack of trust, mm-hmm. right? So what ends up happening for something like this is you can create a lot of really amazing things. And I see this all the time. You can create a lot of amazing things from just the grit, just the working hard, just like your talent and all that stuff. But then you actually end up at some point, as you get higher, you end up capping the kind of possibilities that you can receive. Yes. Because if you have to control the outcome, then guess what happens? You have only a controlled set of potential outcomes. So you are actually at some point capping, right?
Blocking.
So blocking, right? Blocking, exactly, from you being able to receive
something better,
something higher, something easier, something, right? Because you are operating in this paradigm of, no, I need to know it. I need to see it. I need to plan for it. It needs to happen in this specific way.
So how do we detach from all that and just be in the flow? Because that's my thing. I want to be more in the flow. How do you detach?
Okay. So
without coming off as, I don't care anymore about this, because you don't want to lose the momentum, right? But
okay.
How do you balance that?
All right. So this is hard, because I'm not that hard, but like, this is where it gets tough, because this is where you have to let go. And I don't mean let go, mean like giving up. I mean, you have to let go of it actually like happening in the way that you think it needs to happen. And that is going to require you to, let's say, back off or not do things that you think that you need to do in order to perpetuate. And what will happen in the recalibration is you will maybe drop the ball on a few things, but then you have to get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm releasing that paradigm. And actually, so I'm going to have to let go of the old way things used to come to me. I'm going to welcome in this new paradigm. So yes, some of the old results will fall away. But actually what I'm doing is I'm opening my field to having better, more flowy, bigger results. But here's the catch. You have to make that jump. And that jump is what I call the recalibration period, which is never very comfortable.
What is that?
It's like where, again, the old reality has to fall away. The old results connected to the old way of doing has to fall away before you're like, oh, shoot. The new reality. I'm just in the new reality. But there is that recalibration period. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that can be like a month.
How do you work with clients to go through that recalibration? Like in my case, what's recalibration for me?
So for you, it would have the feeling that you are dropping the ball on things.
I feel like I am.
Okay.
Which is crazy, because I've been on a trajectory of like, you do this, you get this result. You do this, you get that result. And I've been successful at it. So now for me to say, I'm comfortable dropping the ball, I'm comfortable being...
You're not going to be comfortable. I'm not saying you're going to be comfortable.
I lean into the uncomfort, for sure.
Good. I think that's exactly what you're meant to do. But there is still a part of you, it's completely normal, by the way, that's still like, oh, but can I really open myself up to then the bigger possibilities? Like there's still a part of you that doesn't fully trust, which is normal. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. And so, okay. So for people like you or like, a lot of other people out there, sometimes our higher self, and I'm not saying for sure, I'm just saying sometimes our higher selves will literally drop us to the lowest low so that we have no choice but to completely let go. It's like we're still like gripping on a little bit. And it's like, oh, shoot, I can't
have a
even.
Breakthrough.
Yeah. In order for you to then go. Like, so notice how a lot of really, really highly successful people, they can't, like, you hear about them, they like had nothing at some point.
Right. It's Khalil Rafati's story. I don't know if you've heard it from Sun Life Organics. He was a drug addict for majority of his adult life. And he hit such rock bottom where he said, I just sat there in my tears, on the bathroom floor saying, God, I give it to you. God, help me because I'm dying. Until he reached that point of no return, was he able to actually have a breakthrough.
Yes.
And I mean, I feel like I went through that in my personal life, and I did that exact same thing. I sat there, I was in my bedroom, I was having a particularly low day, and I said, God, I give it to you. I am your child. In a sense, I am a product of your creation. I made these decisions because of whatever you put in me, So now I give it to you because I don't know what else to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Is that surrender?
Yeah, that is surrender. But then that does mean like you have so it is surrender. That's exactly it. And that's beautiful. That's really, really beautiful. So mentally you might think that you are totally surrendered. But then
but then you're not.
But then sometimes when I read people, I'm like, okay, but you're still holding on a little bit.
Because the work is not linear. It's not like you just get there, right? It's like one step forward to 2 steps back on a bad day.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we all fall back. I mean, this is a mastery.
Yes, it is. This is your life's mission. Like, this is your life's
it's the soul's
work.
Purpose. Yeah.
Yes, this is your life's work to understand that actually, oh my God, like I am protected.
So what's the process if you're, like you're saying, you're hitting roadblocks again? What's the process to keep going? Like, what are the signs to know that you're actually on the right path?
So the signs to know that you're actually on the right path, honestly, okay, so this isn't going to be an answer that is going to make people feel all mushy inside. The only way you know that you're on the right path, to be honest, is understanding how to let go of the things that you need to let go of in the moment. Okay, that's the only, like, the things that do not serve you. So the things like it's like literally like the anxiety or the stress or the expectations or the control, right? Like asking yourself this question. This is what I ask. Like, is this way of being serving me? So even if it's produced this result before, is this actually serving my highest potential of experience of life that I want? Mm-hmm. And if the answer is no, are you brave enough to let that go? And most people will be like, yeah, I'm brave. And then they get to the moment and nope, not.
Nope. And they revert
absolutely
back.
not. See, that's what I mean by still holding on. So when you're on that path, right? If you can ask yourself that question whenever you're presented with a thing or whatever, an obstacle, a challenge, like, what am I being asked to release here? What am I being asked to let go of within me here? And then let's say you get the answer and then you're like, okay, maybe not, maybe later, right? Then it's like, okay, well, let's get there. Like right now the path is let's get you to the point where you can actually let go and fully surrender into the trust, and then be able to go to the other side of that. Because there is another side. The problem is, or the conundrum is, you can't see the other side until you let go of the side that you're on. That's the hard part. That's what no one really wants to do. Like,
what kind of breakthroughs did you notice within yourself as you were getting into this practice? Because you said, you hit your own rock bottom. You were going nowhere with your career. Dating a man who's engaged, that's enough to shake you to your core. So like, how did you get to these breakthroughs and where's your life now?
Well, it was a long process. Like I said, I tried a lot of different things that were just not working. And then I got to that point where, I had that download rush through me. And then I became obsessed with answering this one question. How do I get back to that? How do I embody more of that knowing that rushed through me in that one instant? Like if I can connect with that, and it was a knowing, it wasn't just like a mental thing. If I can connect with that energy or that state of being that rushed through me more consistently, I know I'll be able to change my life. I'll have all of the power I need to do it.
So how did you do that?
So like I just said about like asking, like, what am I being asked to release right now? Right. Am I being asked to release the control, the fear, and then as I was just releasing, am I being asked to release even things like doing things that I normally would not do, I jumped into doing it. And I was like, would the higher version of me do that? And if the answer was yeah, then I was like, oh gosh, okay. Would the higher version of me do that? If the answer is yes, okay, I'll go do that. I'll do that.
Do you encourage your clients to talk to their
Yes.
future selves and say, what's the advice you would give me and the person I am today?
I don't do that exercise, but you can totally do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I would just say that that's like connecting with your higher self, because your higher self is also your future best self too.
What are some of the exercises that you do with your clients? Like tangible things people at home can do
For sure.
to elevate?
Yeah. So one of the big things that you can actually do even just now is, let's say, like you come across a trigger, any trigger. It literally can be any trigger. I don't care how right you think you are. I don't care how wrong the other person is. I don't care about all of that. But just when you confront a trigger in your life, it could literally be you're in traffic and oh my gosh, like the traffic's going so slow and I need to get there and oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. Pay attention to that, because that's connected to some sort of energy that is disconnecting you, right? And so if you can sit in the trigger, don't feed it. Don't feed it thought, don't feed it story, don't feed it action, don't feed it reaction. Just don't feed it and just sit with it and just and just say to yourself, okay, what is this energy that's coming up in me right now? And just sit with it, just be with it and just accept it. And if you can get to the point of accepting it and like fully being in it and accepting it and not like trying to distract yourself away from it, not trying to resolve it, not trying to react to it.
What's a trigger for you?
So one of my triggers right now, it is all around the control piece. Right? So control is one of the hardest things. It is actually the hardest thing to fully surrender into. Have I released a lot of it? 100%. I am very, very different than I was before. But control is literally, it goes as deep as like, I want to live tomorrow.
Wow.
I want to wait, think about it, right? Because there's a control energy around like, I want this. I want to make sure that I'm going to get here. I want to make sure that I'm literally going to exist in like a year. I want to make sure that my income is this in a year or 2 years, right? That's all control. It's all like an illusion that you have control over it, as opposed to allowing it to happen through you or allowing it to happen for you.
When I think of my triggers sometimes, it's that I could be having a conversation with someone and I'm already thinking like in my mind, I've jumped 20 steps ahead. And I think it has a lot to do with my job, because I've spent 15 years interviewing people, right? And looking for that perfect soundbite for my stories. So it's almost like I know what I'm looking for in the conversation.
I know.
And I oftentimes, when I meet people, I feel like I know what I'm looking for in the conversation. And so if they're not talking about what I'm looking for, I tune out. But I need to stay present in that, because that's when you're asking the best questions. That's when not in this setting, because I feel like this is so, it's just open. But in my personal situations too, if I meet someone and they're telling me something, I'm all of a sudden thinking about like 20 steps ahead. Why is that?
Because you're just a little ahead of time. You're just like a little, like it's an actual thing, like where we just, where we exist. Like, so energetically, if you're not in your center, you can be a little ahead of time. You can be a little behind time. So if you're a little ahead of time, right, you're impatient. You're thinking 20 steps ahead, like you're more irritable around stuff. Like those are just the physical symptoms of being a little ahead of time. So like literally when I would work with someone who's a little ahead of time, I just help them come back more into their body or into their center energetically. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, I'm not thinking as much.
Right.
As ahead. Oh, I'm just able to be here more. And I didn't even notice that I'm able to be here more. But yeah, you're right. I am. Right.
I think the struggle with that also is like when you set goals for yourself, right? I have A, B, C, and D that I want to accomplish this year. And I'm like, okay, it's already September and we haven't gotten there yet. So then I'm getting ahead of myself.
Control.
But it's a control, right? But also control is what makes you successful in a way. Not really, but it does. But then you hit a roadblock because that only serves you to a certain extent. And I feel like once you reach a certain point, now it's about letting go to get to the next level.
Good point. All right, guys. So like on this journey, you're going to hit different levels. Okay. in order for you to get to your highest level, the biggest lesson is letting go. The biggest lesson is trust. The biggest lesson is surrender. I'm just going to be honest. A lot of people aren't necessarily there yet. Okay. And so they actually need to learn discipline, or they actually need to use the control patterns in order to be able to get to a certain level of evolution. Right. And then once they get to that next level of evolution, that's the hardest jump, is going, oh, wait, but I've used all of these patterns to get here. And really, like, is there really the next level where I don't need these patterns? And that's the challenge at the higher levels. Right. But up until then, it's not, I don't always just want to tell people, just totally let go. Just let go. It's because they could also be bypassing by letting go. For you, though, it is more about letting bypass?
Go. But I guess you're saying it depends on your, okay. So how do you explain this whole thing, this whole practice, what you do to someone who knows nothing about it and is pretty skeptical?
Really good question. How do I explain what I do? Or how do I explain this work? This work is really just about coming back home to who you are, coming back home to the limitless nature that runs through you, to that source energy that we talked about, that runs through you, that knows its power, that knows it has access to everything, that knows that it's the creator, that knows that it's here, by the way, as a human.
It's annoying when people say, I know I'm meant for more.
Yes.
Whatever it is.
Yes.
Whether it's a better relationship, a bigger house, a better job, you know you're meant for it. You can taste it. It's like you connect to this energy of what you want to be. But a lot of times people just say, well, I don't know how to get there.
But it's not about that. It's actually you. And that's what happened for me with my breakthrough. I actually just spent all of my time not focusing on external results. And the reason why I was able to do that, by the way, guys, is because I wasn't getting external results. So I could let that go because I wasn't getting any anyway. So I just focused all of my time, energy, effort on becoming the best version of me and connecting with that pure potential within me at such a deep level. That's all I was obsessed with. And then all of a sudden things just started to come to me, right? In a way that I couldn't imagine or predict. So that's really what this work is. It's about connecting you to that limitless potential that's already within you, that you knew as a kid, and being able to trust in that and surrender into that and then live from that place. Because when you live from that place, you want to do the work, actually. Like, you light up when you're doing it.
I love it.
Exactly.
I'm so all for it.
Right, exactly.
But I felt like I had a calling to it.
Right.
And people go through that in different stages in their lives. And some people never do, unfortunately.
Yes, because that wasn't their experience, right? That they signed up for, I guess.
So how do you also correlate this with self-love? Because I think a lot of it is tied to self-love and our core belief system, because I feel like when we think about what we want in life, does that really go hand in hand with what we truly believe we deserve? We could want to be a supermodel, right? I'm just giving you a silly example. But if we don't believe that we're worthy of that or belong in that world, it's never going to happen.
So let me say this. When you connect more with your potential, and you connect more with your deservingness, you'll naturally be actually attracted to the things that actually would be able to materialize that deservingness in your physical reality. So for instance, someone who, let's say, wants to be a supermodel, but they're not necessarily, that's not really in their highest potential. Like, your highest potential isn't necessarily a supermodel, right? But they think that they want to be a supermodel. It's probably because they have patterns, or like, let's say, low self-worth patterns or whatever patterns in them that actually makes them focus on the things that they were not actually, let's say, in their highest potential meant to do. So that what would happen, it would perpetuate the low self-worth because they would never feel worthy. And then the results would say to them, yeah, you're not worthy. And so do you see what I'm saying? Whereas if you actually aligned with that limitless potential within you, you actually align more with what your natural real gifts are, your highest potential in this life, you would naturally just be a little more attracted to the things that you are going to shine at, the things that you're going to do really well and you can succeed at the highest levels, and you can achieve success at the highest levels.
I feel like oftentimes we look at what could go wrong, and also, we only know the rules based on our current reality, right? So if I say, I want to be an astronaut, but I haven't gone to the school for it, I haven't done all these things for it, but I'm not looking at it like, okay, it can all be made easier for me in just a couple of years, because you don't know how the technology is going to come and sort of deliver itself to you.
Yeah.
You know, Oprah says, when you get clear on what you want, the road just opens up. You know, the road naturally in life just kind of comes and meets you.
Totally.
When I look at that, like, I really wanted to come to LA and work in LA as a reporter, but I was in San Diego. And so I was thinking at the time of all the obstacles, right? I'm under contract. Do they have an opening? I would look online. They don't have an opening. I wasn't thinking that the general manager of KTLA was going to come over and just offer me a job, because that was not part of my reality. My reality was, well, when there's a position that's open, I will go the route that I know, which is apply online, traditionally, wait for the interview, go in an interview. I never thought in my wildest dreams this man would come and say, we created a position for you.
Exactly.
But my focus was on where I want to be.
Yes.
So I wasn't, so it's
yeah. So let me just clarify that as well. If you feel this calling or passion, so the way I felt it for acting, let's say, and was not successful at it for a very long time, right? But I still went with it. Did it give me something that I use now in what I do now? Mm-hmm. Yes, it did. But in order for me to actually unlock that potential, I had to get to a certain point to unlock that potential, like where I could use my acting to help me in what I ultimately do, right? So I also don't want to say, if you like, it's different because you actually knew in your like gut, you're like, no, this is the right thing for me. Like I really like, this is aligned with me. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people, they just go like, no, I just want that. But it's not like coming from anything in their body. Like, they can't even really feel it. If you feel the passion, then there is something in that is meant to be learned, is meant to be explored, or maybe you're meant to grow through pursuing that thing so that you can ultimately end up doing the other thing that you're meant to do, right? But again, the process is you becoming a better version of you every step of that way to be a match to the next thing that comes. Mm-hmm. Right. So I don't know why I got onto that tangent.
No, I love it. What's your take on, I'm just going to throw a few ideologies toward you. Rejection or redirection is like protection, or how does that saying go? It's like, you have to trust that if a door's not opening or if a door's closing, it's for a reason. And how do you trust that new path?
I mean, that's hard, right? So because it could be a few things, but I will say that yes, there is truth in that 100%. Okay. Meaning, if you are not ready for what you think that you want, then if you got that thing right now, it would actually totally ruin another surprise for you. That is actually even better than like you can even possibly fathom. So yeah, that is a redirection from your higher self. Like, let's not distract you with that. Okay. So let's close that door. No, just continue on. Or like, like this might redirect you a little bit, right? So that you can actually go on the path to getting the thing that you actually really want from your soul, not just what you think you want in the moment. So that 100% could be. Now, but there's another piece as well, which is, and this comes from the mindset, people who go like, persevere, keep trying, keep going. Because I do believe in that too, because sometimes, okay, we create our own resistance, which shows up as a closed door, right? Even though that is the right path for us, we will create that resistance because we are not ready for it yet. So we're actually being asked to shed something. Mm-hmm. Okay. So like, let's say you're posting on social media, for instance. Okay. And like, you want to get a certain result, or you want people to see your content and everything like that. I'm not going to say, okay, you got a closed door because you only got 3 views to stop posting. No. What if that only 3 views actually was reflecting your own fear of being seen? Was reflecting some deep fears that you need to release, that you need to get rid of in order for you to get to where you want to go. And actually, you are meant to be posting. You are meant to be seen, but you need to break through that fear, right? So it's not just like a one answer all the time. It just depends.
I think sometimes it's a matter of asking yourself, what is this situation trying to show me about myself?
Totally. Yeah. Exactly. Communicate with your higher self, right? And get more of that clarity.
Because now I can actually stop and say, okay, if this didn't work out, there's a reason. What could possibly be the reason? And I think sometimes when we really stop and think about that, the answer is there. Mm-hmm. And you start to understand like, okay, now I'm going to look at this a month from now. And in hindsight, I probably will have a different understanding of it.
Totally.
What do you think about synchronicities and sort of reading the signs,
Yeah.
because I recently have been doing a lot of like asking for signs.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll say like, if I'm supposed to be doing this, if I'm on the right path, show me a sign and I will get it from the universe.
Yes.
I swear.
Yes.
It's scary. So what do you do with that? And how should people ask for signs?
Just start practicing, because I feel like the universe is always trying to send us signs actually. But again, if we are disconnected from ourselves, sometimes we just won't even see it. It won't even register. Right. But when you start getting those signs, it's honestly your higher self really going, yeah, you're supported. You're going in the right path. Just keep going. Like, you're okay. It's like really like, hey, you're okay. You're taken care of. Hey, like, we're here. Like, I'm here, which is really yourself, but, or like your spirit guides or whatever, which is also just really an extension of self. But like, it's like, hey, you're being supported. You're going in the right direction. Keep going. Don't lose faith. Don't give up on yourself. That's how I see signs.
So can you give us a couple examples of people you've worked with and how they've made positive breakthroughs?
Yeah. So there was one particular person who came to me, and she was she just got unemployed, 46, single, depressed, like never been in like a really long-term relationship before. And she's like, okay, my life's over, because I wanted a family and I wanted to enjoy life, but my life is fundamentally over. And I'm like, okay. So, right, we were working together, and I could just see like she was holding on to certain like energies, like for instance, guilt. Right? How guilt showed up in her life all the time. She didn't realize guilt was showing up, and guilt could actually be an energetic block. And it's like, yes, it actually can. And so we released a lot of, actually, that was the main thing that we released, like a huge thing of guilt, and it ran through her lineage, through religion, and all of this stuff. And literally like 4 months later, right, she's like, oh my God, I'm getting all these like different opportunities. All these people are coming to me like to, have me work for them and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. Right. And then literally like a few months after that, she's like, I'm pregnant and I'm engaged to the man of my dreams. And I'm like, and she sent me a photo, and she's like, yay. And then we had a session, and she was like, and I said, it was a boy. I thought it was a boy. She's like, yeah, it's a boy. And, and so her life did a complete 180. Now, here's the thing. It's not because I did that to her. It's because I was just helping her at a higher level of energy open up the possibilities, right, for her that were available to her for her particular life. And that happened to be getting pregnant. That happened to be meeting someone. That happened to be, these other opportunities that came to her. I just helped her see it at a deeper level.
How we're self-sabotaging. What are we doing that's self-sabotaging? And that's really clearing the energy to let yourself not be weighed down by these things, whether it's impatience, whether it's lack of self-worth, or if it's, guilt in this person's case where they don't think they're worthy because they have to repent something.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So, I guess I'm not saying her name, but so for her, it was actually really interesting the way guilt showed up. I'm like, are you close to your mom? And she's like, not really. I'm not really close to my mom. And I'm like, really? Because why do I keep on seeing her in your field? Like, you communicate with her.
That's what you said to me yesterday too.
Oh, no. But I mean, this is a little different. Although, yeah, that's funny. I'm bringing it up. And I'm like, really? Because it looks like you communicate a lot with her. And she's like, oh, yeah. We text every single day, but I'm not that close to her. And I'm like, that's interesting. And then as we like really dove into it, she's like, yeah, I tell her everywhere I'm going all the time. We talk all the time. She needs to know where I'm going every single moment. And she needs to know what's happening in my life every single day. It's like all of this stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's a problem. Like, you're actually being held back by this. And she was like, no, I'm not. Like, what are you talking about? It's not even a big deal. It's just a few texts.
Right.
And then actually as she released it, and then it was like oh my God, like this energy has actually been keeping me confined to a certain kind of reality that I didn't even understand. I thought it was just like keeping my mom happy, but it actually was much bigger than that. It showed up in so many other parts of her life because it's energy. It's not just like that one instance.
She's constantly tied to the need for the approval.
The like, I can't go outside of my bounds, right? I always feel bad. I always feel bad for being a little too much. I always feel bad for going a little too big, right? And all of these things tied in with that.
And then we keep ourselves small as a result.
And then you just think, no, it's just that I just want to keep her happy. It's like, well, but what's actually informing that?
Right. I think my biggest breakthrough in reference to that was, I did a lot to ensure that people loved me because I never believed that that love was unconditional.
Right.
And so I thought I had to do these things, even if I was betraying myself. And they're not necessarily bad things, but they're just not aligned to who I am.
Yes.
So you are to some extent compromising a part of yourself.
Yes.
And then when I realized, you just have like this epiphany or awakening one day, you're like, no, the only person I'm living for, other than my children, of course, is myself.
Yes.
So as long as these people are not going to sit there and they may be upset at first, but I think as long as you are constantly sending them love and light, right? But choosing yourself and saying, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. And you're going to have to make peace with the fact that I'm choosing me is so liberating because you're not a bad person for choosing you.
No.
Eventually people will get it.
100%. They might be a little butthurt at first. It's just part of the process. Let them be butthurt. You don't have to take care of them. You have to be responsible for their feelings. They will readjust the way that they need to.
What are some breakthroughs you still want to achieve for yourself?
So the control thing that I mentioned earlier, I want to so my whole highest version of me is like complete and utter surrender and trust and just complete surrender into, do you know what I'm saying? And
Totally.
Just being able to live in total surrender. If that means I live in some other country on the beach in some I don't know, in some house somewhere, collecting seashells, I'm like, I'm for that. I just want to always feel that flow of myself in my body at all times and feel that real trust in myself. And that connection to life.
I think it comes down to asking yourself, how do I want to feel? As opposed to what do I want my life to look like? Because we can paint the picture of the perfect life. But maybe for me, what's going to make me feel the best doesn't even mean a big house. It doesn't even mean anything. It could be someone who lives in a small space but travels all the time because that's what fulfills me on a higher level. To constantly be a student of the world and be constantly curious, because I feel like the bigger life you have, sometimes it ends up owning you.
Exactly. And so it's so weird, right? We're like, oh, I just want this and I want that. And then you get the things. How many guys have had that experience? And you're like, okay, what next?
What next?
Right? Why are we so in a hurry to arrive at some random destination when literally life is about the journey? That's literally what life is. And we don't have this experience forever. So it's like we're trying to shortchange life by hurrying everything up in a way that might not even feel good or might not even feel aligned to what we actually wanted. And then we're left being like, oh, is that it? Oh, now what? No, we want the journey. That's why we're here.
Yeah. And so before we wrap up, last night when I went to bed, I had these crazy dreams in a good way. But it's like I was purging in my dreams.
Yeah.
Is that normal when someone enters your counseling or coaching?
Yes, crazy dreams, physical detoxes, emotional detoxes, psychological because let's say the energy is stored in you at a deep level and then now you're able to release it. What happens is it's kind of like having duct tape on your forehead or having something on your face, let's say, right? And you don't see that it's on your face and people are like, oh, that's on your face. And then all of a sudden someone takes it off your face and you see what's been on your face the whole time. And you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that's been on my face. It's kind of a similar that. So people go through this process of emotional detox and psychological detox of, I can't believe that's how I've been operating my whole life. What the heck? Who am I? And they go through this, who am I? They also go through the physical stuff, which is headaches sometimes.
I have a headache
body.
today.
Okay.
I have a headache
body
today.
aches and pains. So headaches happens when you usually are an overthinker and you tend to live in your head a lot. I was going through so many headaches, through my detoxes. In the beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, my head, and nothing helped because it's actually just you purging energy.
Yeah. So where can people find you? How can someone find you if they want to work with you and have their energy read and have their energy cleared? Give us the whole rundown.
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram at Paget Kagy. And you can also go to pagetkagy.com or quantumshiftaccelerator.com. That's my 3-month quantum energy healing program. So, and you can hit up my team there if you have any questions.
I love your Instagram, your videos. It's like a rabbit hole. I get sucked in. I can't stop watching.
That's what it was designed for.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Breaking Through with Alina Abovian. For our community to grow, please like and share, and also leave a review on this episode. Of course, you can find me on social media and let me know what you'd like to talk about in future episodes. Nothing is off limits, so let's have some fun.